Hi everyone. So I wanted to talk today about the two resources that I'm using for our assignment for this week and how they correspond with the UDL guidelines, with Chapter 8 of Rice, and with the Web Accessibility Guidelines. So the two resources that I'm going to be looking at are pretty relevant to my lessons right now. So we start the Outsiders today, and the two resources that I'm going to be using are this Outsiders web quest and this Literary Elements and Devices packet, which I'll get into a little bit more when I get there. But these are two resources that I'm going to be using or have used in the last week and in the upcoming weeks. So I thought that it was good to use something relevant so I can kind of see how I'm doing as far as what the online teaching guidelines are. So after looking at the different readings and the different articles for this module, I'm kind of split because I feel like I'm doing a lot of what each of the different articles or the chapter is saying to do. So like I feel like I have a lot of the visual and auditory accommodations that each of them talks about, but at the same time I definitely feel like there's more that I can be doing. So I don't know, I'm kind of split on that front. But what I did notice is that each of the different things that I'm going to be using definitely have a lot in them that was talked about through the UDL guidelines, the Web Accessibility Guidelines, and the Chapter 8 of Rice, which also had the UDL guidelines kind of outlined in it. So I'll just talk briefly about what I saw in my own resources in comparison to what was in those different articles and readings. So my web quest is a Google Doc. This is where they actually record all of their answers, but the web quest part of it is a link that has a whole bunch of different resources on it. So I think one of the very first things about this that I wanted to point out was in reference to page 226 of Rice, which talks about, it's the Principle 3, provide multiple means of engagement, where it talks about providing opportunities for collaboration. This was something that was done as a small group. That it was a really long web quest. So there's 20 questions total, but each of the questions has 2 or 3 questions embedded in it. So I mean, it took them 2 full class periods to complete, and I wanted them to kind of be able to split up the workload here and really collaborate, and because this was all new information to them. It was a lot about the time period that the Outsiders is taking place in, what was going on socioeconomically, what was going on socially at that time. So it was really a lot of new information for them. So I wanted them to kind of be able to jigsaw with each other, and some of them can do questions 1 through 5, some of them can do 6 through 10, so on and so forth. So definitely that multiple means of engagement I think is here, and it also in that table, in table 8.5 on page 226, says to provide prompts, reminders, and checklists that promote independence and self-regulation. So this was an assignment that was on Google Classroom. It's right here, the directions are here, and I gave them constant reminders. Google Classroom gives them constant reminders of when it needs to be completed. So that was there as well. So the actual web quest itself is through these links. And this is where I felt like kind of the bread and butter of the different areas of the reading and the UDL article and the Web Accessibility Guidelines showed up. So the UDL guidelines and the section of Rice, table 8.5 in Rice, definitely talked a lot about that visual and audio accessibility. So this is something that I thought embodied a lot of what was talked about in the UDL guidelines as well as Chapter 8. So on page 225 of Rice, as well as the different principles in excuse me, in the UDL guidelines, they talk a lot about so interactive models, which I'll show you where that comes up, but they talk a lot about using video, using audio, having some kind of, so here it is, video, an alternative form, embed visual non-linguistic supports for vocabulary clarification, which I did because a lot of this is new for them, and really just talking about like making the engagement beyond just words. Don't just type it for them, but actually show them what they are learning about. So that's something that I felt like was definitely present here. So what they did was each of these different clickables takes them to a different web link and will show them what they need in order to answer the questions appropriately. And some of those things were videos, like this Perry Mason. One of my students actually asked if they could just watch an episode of it. I was like, yeah, sure, go ahead if you have time to do that. So some of them were links. Some of them took them to YouTube videos that will play directly on the page, like this Beatles video. So they were actually able to see all of that right there. Additionally, some of them, and I have to find where it is, but some of them talked about fashion at this time and asked them about like Madra shirts and surfer shirts, and I wanted them to be able to see actual visual representations of that, so that's what these did. So it puts a picture with what they're looking at, and it's not just regurgitating information. Now they actually have a visual of it. They can actually apply this when we do start reading. They can see, oh, okay, well, this is what the Socias wore. This is what the Greasers wore. So I definitely thought that that was present in this web quest. There were definitely some things that I also felt like were probably not in accordance with both the reading and the UDL principles. I definitely think it's a little bit overwhelming here because when you aren't hovering over the picture, everything goes away. You can just see a picture of the characters. But when you come over, everything is there at the same time. And unfortunately, there's no way to, like when you click on a link, there's no way for it to go away or to gray out and say like, okay, you already clicked on this one. So they would just kind of have to remember and float around and say like, oh, okay, did I click on TV 2? I don't remember. Did I click on events 2? So that's definitely something that if I could improve this, I would want to, because I don't want it to be so overwhelming. I do have a few students with 504s and IEPs for ADHD and just the inability to kind of organize. So that's definitely something that I would want to improve based on these readings and my understanding of how students interact with multiple means of technology and multiple means of research. So that's that one. The other piece that I wanted to look at is my Outsiders Literary Devices and Elements packet. So again, going back to page 226 of Rice, where it says provide the opportunities for collaboration. This is collaborative. I do rotations in my class, so this is actually what they would be doing, part of what they'd be doing in their collaborative groups. So that's what this is for. And what this is, we're learning right now about the different literary devices. So this just kind of shows them like what they need in order to fully complete this. It's got the column headings over here, or the row headings over here, and the column headings up top, which is something that the Web Accessibility Guideline really talked about, that when you're doing tables, that there should be column headers, and everything should be kind of like there for you and easy to follow, easy to understand, and the tables are definitely really, really useful. That also comes up in the UDL guidelines as well, providing visual diagrams. I'm really, really, really big on graphic organizers. I think that my students perform a lot better when they have a graphic organizer to kind of collect all of their thoughts and put everything into an area where it's going to be organized instead of just randomly writing things down on a piece of paper. So that for me is really big. I definitely stay more organized that way, and I know that they do as well. So I was glad to see that when I was going through the UDL guidelines, and just kind of knowing that the graphic organizer idea is definitely re-solidified there. So that was that. So additionally, what I found, what I guess I didn't even really think about until I was reading this was, so I have these pictures here, and in the web accessibility guidelines it talks about having this image alt text over here, and that if you're using a screen reader, your pictures have to have some kind of alternative text associated with them in order for the screen reader to appropriately read the text. And I just kind of laughed, and I was like, oh, what would a screen reader say about this? Caterpillar reading a book. That doesn't really have anything to do with this. It's more just like it's colored, so it's not boring, so it kind of sticks out to them when they get on here. This is something that they do digitally, so it's not, unfortunately, our printers print in black and white, so it used to be something that I would print out on my own in color, so then they knew, like, okay, the one with the colored caterpillar at the top is the one that I'm talking about. But now that they do it digitally, there's not a whole lot of use for it besides just it's cute and it kind of livens the page a little bit. But I just laughed to myself when I saw that, because I was like, I don't know what a screen reader would read that as, or what text I would even put with that to associate it to the actual concept here besides just it's reading a book. So that was something that I definitely am more cognizant of now than I was before. So I definitely think that there was a lot that I got from these readings. I think that there was a lot that I was able to find in my own resources, but at the same time, I definitely thought that there were some things that I was lacking, and some things that I didn't even really think about. One, because I'm not teaching in that online environment, I'm not necessarily thinking about the different kinds of online accommodations that my students would need. But even on top of that, I don't have a whole lot of students with 504s and IEPs, and the ones that I do typically are regarding needing to type their responses instead of handwrite them. And because I do a lot of my stuff digitally, that kind of already embeds itself, and these activities that I'm doing lend themselves to that accommodation for them. So I definitely thought they were beneficial. I was able to take a lot from them, and I really enjoyed reading them. So hopefully you enjoyed my different resources and you love The Outsiders as much as I do.